now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines in simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Alina. Happy Monday. It's International Podcast Day for your interest.
Is that right? I guess Good Morning Seoul also goes out as a Clippets. Yeah. It goes under a podcast category. So
it could, yeah.
I'll see you there.
Why not? Yeah.
All right. Happy Monday to you. It seems it was a busy news cycle over the weekend. We continuously got updates out of the Middle East. Some daunting news. Israel's military offensive continued over the weekend after the killing of the longtime Hezbollah leader. This is our first pick of the day.
Israeli bombing.
So Israel continues to strike against the Axis of Resistance as a coalition of anti-Israel, anti-U.S. militant groups throughout the Middle East, led by Iran. Israeli forces bombed bases of Yemen's Houthi rebels, expanding its confrontation with Iran's allies in the region. What's the latest, Adam?
Right, so Iran says it has carried out large-scale airstrikes targeting what it calls military targets of the Houthi terrorist regime. Yemen's Houthis say at least 4 people have been killed and 33 others wounded. Israel says it targeted the sites in response to recent attacks from the Houthis, including a ballistic missile attack, as well as to destroy facilities being used to transport Iranian weapons. Now, the Houthis called the strikes brutal aggression and vowed to retaliate. Yemeni rebels have fired 3 ballistic missiles so far toward Israel this month. Israel has also carried out airstrikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon on the same day. The Israeli military has shown confidence in its ability to engage in simultaneous conflicts. So with Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Houthi rebels in Yemen. Analysts suggest this is a strategy to try and provoke a response from Iran. Now, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says that Israel should not be allowed to continue attacking countries within the axis of resistance. He added that Lebanon should be supported as well. Now, Iran's foreign ministry also condemned the Israeli strikes in Yemen targeting a power plant and fuel tanks as well. So again, more concerns that this is spreading to a regional conflict and possible full-out war. So yeah, there's no seemingly end to this conflict at the moment. It's only escalating as the days go by.
It's been over almost a year since the war in the Middle East began this time around, and it seems that major powers across the world, including the United States, have proved incapable of sort of stopping this escalation. So we'll wait and see what happens next. But in the meantime, a closer look at the story on GMS Focus in our second hour, so stick around for that too. In the meantime, let's turn to New York again. The UN General Assembly, there was a sidelines talk that indicates that maybe a South Korean-China summit might be realized. Our second keyword of the day.
Yoon-Xi summit.
Isn't it a sad morning when you forget to count? Okay, so our second keyword. The top diplomats of Korea and China have agreed to work on arranging a summit between their leaders at the upcoming APEC summit in Peru this November. Can you tell us the details?
Right, so Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi reached the agreement on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly over the weekend. They also discussed the Korean Peninsula situation and bilateral relations. Now, the Foreign Ministry stated that both sides appreciated the recent increase in high-level exchanges between the two countries. They agreed to continue these exchanges at multilateral events in the second half of this year, such as the APEC summit in November, and to work closely to achieve meaningful outcomes. Cho mentioned the shared understanding between the two nations to maintain active exchanges at this year's APEC summit, and hoped the discussion with Wang would help solidify these plans for high-level engagement in November. Wang expressed full support for Korea's role as the host of next year's APEC summit being held in Gyeongju, and pledged to work towards successful outcomes in that as well. Now, the mention of the APEC summits this year and next year by both ministers suggests the intention of arranging bilateral summits between Yoon Suk-yeol and Xi Jinping at these events. Nothing confirmed or finalized just yet, but they're certainly working on such a meeting. Now, Xi has actually not visited Korea since July 2014, so it's been 10 years. The last time was, of course, during the Park Geun-hye administration. Cho and Wang also agreed to continue strengthening economic cooperation between the two countries. Wang emphasized the need for South Korea and China as key economic powers to work together for Asia-Pacific economic integration. Wang also criticized the deployment of U.S. missiles in the region, stating it harms regional peace and stability and is against the interests of countries in the area. Zhou addressed North Korea's recent missile launches and its uranium enrichment facility activities, noting the growing threats ahead of the U.S. presidential election. He stressed the importance of high-level dialogue between South Korea and China and requested China's constructive role in addressing Korean Peninsula issues. Wang responded by emphasizing that war on the Korean Peninsula must be avoided and that maintaining peace and stability aligns with everyone's interests. And he stated that China will continue to play a constructive role in supporting long-term stability on the peninsula. And Cho also raised the issue of protecting North Korean defectors and asked for China's cooperation on that matter as well.
All right, keeping close tabs on the potential Yoon-Xi summit. Let's move on to our third keyword of the day.
Med shortage.
So the Presidential Special Committee on Medical Reform plans to set up a body to estimate the shortage of doctors and better include the medical community's views in expanding medical school admissions. It is the latest government effort to sort of restart talks with the medical professionals, but it's kind of falling on deaf ears. They're still, sort of responding back with the same rhetoric, scrap the quota plan, the quota hike plan, and we'll have the conversation. Tell us more.
Yeah, so a senior presidential official says the committee has completed its review of the new body. The official added that the body would allow discussions on doctor quotas, which the medical community has been requesting. Now, the new body will have separate subcommittees for doctors, dentists, nurses, and other professionals, each consisting of 10 to 15 experts. More than half of these experts will be recommended by relevant medical groups. This will ensure the medical community's opinions are strongly considered when deciding future healthcare workforce needs. Now, the body will use data such as the number of medical graduates, population demographics, and health insurance statistics to estimate the required number of healthcare workers for the future. And the committee will make the final decision on the needed number of professionals based on these estimates. Of course, this doesn't mean that the government is backing down from its plan to increase the medical school admissions. That's something that the medical community wants scrapped altogether. This body is basically saying, well, we'll listen to you. That's what you've been wanting. But of course, the medical community is saying, well, that's not really the case. We want the whole admissions hike to be scrapped altogether. That's where we should start from. So that's why there's this impasse still going on at the moment. Yeah.
All right. With that, we move on to our fourth keyword of the day.
Hyunmoo 5.
So South Korea will show off its new Hyunmoo-5 ballistic missile and other key weapon systems on the 76th Armed Forces Day. That happens to be tomorrow. Can you tell us the details?
Right, so the Hyunmoo 5 will be showcased at the Armed Forces Day ceremony held at Seoul Air Base in Seongnam, as well as during a military parade in downtown Seoul tomorrow. The missile is one of the core assets of South Korea's so-called three-axis system aimed at countering North Korea's threats. Now, the Hyunmoo series is a line of missiles developed, of course, by South Korea. The Hyunmoo 1 has been retired, while the Hyunmoo 2 series consists of short-range ballistic missiles. The Hyunmoo 3 series are cruise missiles, and the Hyunmoo 4 is an upgraded version of the Hyunmoo 2 with different variants of surface-to-surface, surface-to-ship, and submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Now, the Hyunmoo 4, which was revealed last year, has a warhead weighing 2 tons, and this year's Hyunmoo 5 is basically upgraded with a warhead of 8 to 9 tons, making it among the heaviest in the world, in fact. Now, other major assets of the three-axis system will also be featured at this year's Armed Forces Day event. This display is seen as, of course, a strong warning to North Korea amid its recent provocations, including balloon and missile launches. Not just Korean, but U.S. assets as well are also on display. The U.S. Air Force's B-1B bomber will also appear at the event for the first time. It's known as the Bone. The B-1B has a top speed of Mach 1.25 and a range of up to 12,000 kilometers. It can fly from Guam to the Korean Peninsula in just 2 hours. Now, it doesn't carry any nuclear weapons, but it can be equipped with up to 57 tons of armaments, surpassing the other U.S. strategic bombers like the B-2 and B-52. The B-1B will fly over Seoul Air Base during the Armed Forces Day ceremony. That's, of course, a move intended to demonstrate the strength of the US-South Korea alliance. Its presence also serves to celebrate the establishment of South Korea's new Strategic Command, which will be officially launched on Armed Forces Day as well. That Strategic Command will oversee assets such as the Hyunmoo missiles, stealth fighters, and 3,000-ton submarines. It'll serve as the counterpart to the US Strategic Command, which controls ICBMs, SLBMs, and nuclear early warning systems as well. And if you're traveling in the area in downtown Seoul tomorrow, be aware there are traffic control measures in place because of Armed Forces Day. There's going to be a lot of artillery on display, so roads will be blocked, of course, and so the public is being advised to avoid driving, use public transportation as well. Also, buses will be blocked as well, so it's best if you take the subway if you are planning to travel in those areas.
Maybe we need to issue a friendly warning for all of our local listeners, but because even over the weekend there were many events and many roads were closed off. It was very tricky getting to weddings. It is wedding season.
It is, I know. So definitely do take note of not just the weather, but traffic updates as well.
That's right. Not to mention arms display without a fair warning. That could send wrong messages, wouldn't it? All right. Let's move on to our final keyword of the day.
Credit card debt.
So the size of credit card loans is hitting record highs, while delinquency rates are also rising. This comes as many vulnerable borrowers are taking on more debt due to high interest rates and inflation, but are still unable to, of course, repay the total sum. Tell us the details.
Yeah, it's kind of like a vicious cycle, really. I mean, a lot of people in the low income brackets basically can't afford to pay for their basic living expenses. And so they're relying on these cash advances from credit cards and using their credit cards along with that as well. And of course, their debts are piling up and their credit card fees are adding up, which they simply can't repay. Right. Now, according to data from the Financial Supervisory Service, total card loans from 8 credit card companies amounted to just under 44.7 trillion won as the end of last month. The number of loans was 11.71 million cases. Now, this is the highest figure since the FSS began estimating the stats in 2003. Now, this increase is attributed to high interest rates and inflation, as well as stricter lending requirements by banks and savings banks, making borrowing more difficult for the general public. This has led more vulnerable groups to rely on card loans or cash advances for small, quick loans, because basically they can't really get credit loans at their banks. And so, of course, with that, delinquency rates are also rising as well. The card loan delinquency rate was 3.1% as the end of August. A significant portion of the increase in card loans is attributed to self-employed individuals. Now, worsening conditions for these groups are, of course, pushing up delinquency rates. Many of these individuals are likely to be multiple debt holders, which raises concerns about the potential spread of defaults across the financial sector. There are also concerns that these vulnerable borrowers, having exhausted their borrowing options from regular financial institutions, might turn to illegal private loans or loan sharks. Now, debt restructuring has also been increasing among people aged 60 and older as well. So it's targeting or affecting the older senior groups as well. So, yeah, a lot of cause for concern. Basically, things being a lot of out of affordability at the moment. So credit card usage is being basically exhausted by the vulnerable groups. And so, of course, the more you spend on your credit card, of course, the tougher it is to pay it back. So you usually have a window of just a month to pay it back. Yes, there are these interest-free installments that you pay, but of course, there is only a finite amount of loan amounts that you can utilize.
All right. So the volume of card loans and cash advances, so all of these sort of quick cash channels for vulnerable groups, it seems, has reached a record high. We'll keep tabs on the story too. Adam, thank you so much for the updates. We'll see you tomorrow on Tuesday.
You're very welcome. See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.